How to identify magic mushrooms, step by step. Most little brown mushrooms look almost exactly the same. So how do you distinguish the divine from the deadly? If there's no need for mycophobia, the more you are aware of mushrooms, the more you'll realize that fungi are all around us. Learning how to identify magic mushrooms and understand your local fungi can help you feel more in touch with the environment and understand the ecology of your area. Although it's important to remember that no amount of text can substitute for real first-hand knowledge of fungi, still it's worth mentioning that many useful features can aid in identifying a genus and eventually an individual species. But we cannot cover all of those areas here. This guide in this video is designed to be an introduction to identifying psilocybin for beginners. But it should not replace the help and guidance of experienced local mycologists. Rather, it's meant to pique your curiosity and help you learn what to look for. Before diving into magic mushroom identification, it's important to note that foraging wild fungi is not without risk. Magic mushrooms have some very poisonous, potentially deadly lookalikes, so you must know what species you are looking for and how to identify magic mushrooms in your region before venturing into the field. There are also cultural aspects surrounding the foraging of fungi. The increased interest in psilocybin-containing mushrooms and their foraging may negatively impact some species populations. Additionally, possessing psilocybin mushrooms is also federally illegal in most places. There is an ethic and ethos to mushroom foraging, and it is essential to respect the fungi, the environment, each other, and the community. Magic mushrooms, my friends, are diverse. They grow in an array of habitats and on a variety of substrates. Their features range from short, thick stems and broad caps to tall, thin stems and tiny caps. The array... Laughing is good. The array can be a little overwhelming. Yet, psilocybe are far from the only psychoactive fungi out there. There are psychoactive mushrooms in several other genera, including the well-known Panaeolus. But proceed with caution. The genera Psilocybe and cyanescens both contain poisonous species, so it's best to avoid these groups until you are familiar with the species in both genera. With the growing acceptance of psilocybin's therapeutic potential, people are now researching the genus in more detail. Yet despite all of the media around the health benefits of psilocybin, harvesting psilocybe is a felony in most states and countries, enforced by local law enforcement agencies. Fungi from the genus Psilocybe grow on all continents except Antarctica. The Americas in particular are well represented. Psilocybe species grow in several climates, spanning tropical, subtropical, and temperate zones. Latin America represents a center of diversity with an extensive range of species from different parts of the genus. It is important to note that our knowledge of many species may reflect the social interest in mycology and their levels of commitment to understanding their local ecology. Some species, such as Psilocybe cubensis, Psilocybe semionciata, I don't know if I pronounced that right, and to a lesser degree, Panaeolus cyanescens, have become truly global, introduced to many continents through the farming of different varieties of cattle or other livestock. In some cases, species were first formally identified a long way from where they originated. Cubensis is the most popular psychedelic mushroom amongst home cultivators. Although the cubensis holotype, the specimen used to describe the species, was first collected in a scientific context from Cuba, cubensis is not native to the Americas, but an introduced species from either Africa or Southeast Asia. It typically grows on cattle dung, but is also known to grow on horse dung and elephant dung. Poop! Okay. Okay. We're high on life. Many psilocybe mushrooms, particularly the wood-loving species, can look like any other little brown mushrooms, LBMs, some of which are deadly. So it's essential to know the species you are looking for and the poisonous species, including lookalikes in your region. You can find detailed information on common psilocybe lookalikes in the link below. The Field Guide to Mushrooms is an excellent general mushroom resource from Gary Linkoff and the National Audubon Society. A list of resources is also in the article linked in the description. Let me tell you how to identify magic mushrooms in your region. Learning how to identify psilocybin involves developing a relationship with your local environment. And irrespective of mushrooms, I suggest you do. What grows in your particular climate? Where does one habitat meet another? Psilocybe mushrooms grow worldwide, but not all species thrive in the same conditions. Every psilocybe species has a preferred climate and habitat. Some mushrooms, like Psilocybe semilanceata, more commonly known as the Liberty Cap, prefer oceanside grasslands. Others prefer garden wood chips or forest loam. The native species you are likely to find depends on the climate and habitats in your local area. Understanding your local climate will help you identify magic mushrooms near you. Many psilocybe species grow in specific climate zones, which some can tolerate a variety of climates. Where and when mushrooms grow in your region depends on whether or not your local climate is tropical, temperate, oceanic, etc. Some countries may span several different climates. The eastern half of the United States, for example, consists of two broad climatic regions, humid continental and humid subtropical. In the United States, Psilocybe cubensis fruits virtually year-round on cow pies from Florida and along the Gulf Coast, the humid subtropical southeast part of North America. There are a variety of ways to learn how to identify psilocybin in the area you live in, like regional ID guides or local knowledge through mycology groups or Facebook groups. You can access a list from the Shroomery. The following are the most common climate zones for locating magic mushrooms. The humid continental Northeast United States, humid subtropical and tropical Southeast United States, Northeast Australia, and Central America. Tropical, wet and dry, Mexico, Central America, into South America. Let's go deeper on magic mushroom habitats. After climate, familiarity with your local habitats is an essential next step toward proper psilocybe identification. You will need to know which mushrooms grow in the habitat you have chosen to forage. Some lucky foragers can access various habitats in their local areas: forests, meadows, grasslands, etc. You may be surprised to find unique psilocybe species in each of these habitats. Each habitat features not only different environmental conditions, but also different foods and growth substrates. There are three broad categories of magic mushrooms: lignicolous, those that grow on wood or plant-based materials; coprophilous, poop lovers that grow on animal dung; and those that grow on well-decomposed plant matter that is almost soil. To clarify a note about the poo lovers, herbivore feces such as cow pats contain grass and other plant matter, which has already gone through a long digestive process, leaving substrate of very simple cellulose, which many mushrooms just absolutely love. Fungi evolve in response to different environments and substrates. Excellent places to start foraging include cattle pastures on hot, humid summer days after a good rain. Other areas include tropical cloud forests, fields and grasslands on cool, moist fall mornings, or amongst woody debris on the edges of forests. When is shroom season, you might ask? Autumn is generally considered the best time to forage for psilocybin mushrooms, unless you live in a tropical or subtropical climate. Psilocybes generally grow seasonally, depending on climate and habitat. Fungi can grow all year in hot, humid, tropical, or subtropical regions. Keep in mind that no clear-cut lines separate environmental zones. Climates and habitats can fade into each other. There are also changes in climate with changes in altitude. Temperature drops with rising altitude. Microclimates are also possible, with some cold-loving species growing in unexpected places at odd times of the year. The autumn season begins with drops in temperature. As the season progresses, dew gets heavier and temperatures can drop suddenly. Some species, such as Psilocybe cyanescens and Psilocybe azurescens, need these drops in temperature to initiate pinning. Pinning is the term for baby mushrooms first emerging from their substrate. Subtropical regions tend to have a wet and dry period, with mushrooms growing during the wet period. In tropical areas, depending on climate and altitude, the humidity can mean some mushrooms grow all year round. Fungi exist in a variety of shapes, forms, and colors. Some fungi have gills, others sponge-like pores. The odd few look like aliens from another world. Here are a few vital psilocybe features to recognize. They rarely grow in clusters. The exceptions are wood-loving species such as cyanescens or subaruginosa, which can grow in dense clusters and feature multiple caps and stems originating from the same clump of mycelium. Look out for blue bruising. Blue bruising is a distinctive feature of psilocybe. Most psilocybe species show some form of blue bruising on some part of the mushroom, the cap, the stem, or the gills. Blue bruising happens when enzymes in the mushroom oxidize the psychoactive psilocin, one of the primary intoxicating components in psilocybin. All psilocybe bruise blue, but bruising may take a while to appear. On some species, it can also be quite faint. Physical characteristics. To identify psilocybe, let's begin with some overall features. All psilocybe share several common characteristics, but note these are not inclusive. Some species can be incredibly variable. Psilocybe subaruginosa mushrooms, for example, can vary widely in appearance. Here are some common features to look for when identifying psilocybe mushrooms. Mycelium. The bulk of the mushroom lives underground as mycelium, the mushroom's largest organ. Mycelium forms spider-like webs underground and helps the fungi colonize their environment and eat food. Fungi primarily eat inside out. They digest things around them by excreting enzymes. They slobber over everything into their environment via mycelial threads called hyphae. Psilocybe mycelium is white and can form thick rhizomorphic strands that extend through dung, soil, or wood chips. Take a look for the cap, the pileus. All psilocybe have a smooth cap that's often sticky. Now let's talk about the stem, the stipe. The stem is the part of the mushroom that supports the cap. The stem's benefit is lifting the cap high enough to increase spore dispersal. An elevated mushroom will more easily release its spores into wind currents or onto passing animals. The texture of the stem can be important, whether they're fibrous, brittle, chalky, leathery, firm, etc. Psilocybe stems tend to be tough and fibrous. You should be able to wrap the stem of a smaller psilocybe around your little finger without snapping. The gills. The gills are paper-thin structures attached to the underside of the cap, radiating outwards from the stem. Gills can have distinctive microscopic or macroscopic features that are important for identification. A quick tip: use a mirror to see what color the gills of your mushroom are before picking. Spores. All psilocybe species have purple-black spore prints, although this may be more like lilac brown for some species. Creating spore prints to observe their color is easy and worth doing for safer identification. Partial veil Cortina annulus. The partial veil can extend from the cap and covers the cap. As the cap expands, the partial veil, the cortina, peels away and in time disintegrates. Psilocybe mushrooms can be easily mistaken for many other little brown mushrooms. As such, following the adage, "If in doubt, throw it out," is essential for every forager. It's important to defer to the guidance of local mycologists and identification communities for safe and ethical foraging in your local area. For a list of identification resources, follow the link to the article in the description below.